beautiful morning, man.
Yeah, it's nice. This is a nice, nice morning.
It stays like this. Shoot.
It's not gonna warm up much. 81, 82 is the high, so it will rain because otherwise it will be 90 or 91. So I like the rain. We've got our training wheels on, training tires, ultra sport, and we're ready to roll. We'll get some clips for Hello, legends and super legends. Welcome to Veloharmony Live. Today's tour was very, very exciting. And so, without further ado, let's get rolling. They went from Molesine to Surges. They actually ended up in Molesine, from Surges to Molesine. They did the Mont Ventoux twice from two different locations, from Soult and also from Bidouin. Supposedly, one is supposed to be easier than the other, but I don't fall for that. I think that they're all just as difficult. But the action started thick and fast early. You can see the route. They have a category 4 and then a category 1 climb. So of course, this is the day for some action. Mont Ventoux itself, 1,900 meters. And then once they actually ended up on the second time, they descended to the finish as opposed to an uphill. It was not an uphill finish. Hey, Robert. Robert Tangler is here, one of our channel members. Welcome. The profile showed that, basically early in the race, this is 173 kilometers to go. And Julian Alaphilippe and Quintana heated up the action because Quintana is currently the king of the mountain, but Julian Alaphilippe wanted to get some points, so Quintana latched on to him. Tony Martin ended up abandoning the tour, and a bunch of other riders. He had a crash, and I guess he could not continue. So it was sad to see him go. Alaphilippe continued at the head of the race. They basically had time on the yellow jersey. I mean, it's early in the race. It's 154 kilometers to go. So he basically forced the action. That's Dan Martin from Israel Startup Nation on his wheel there. And I think Baki Malama was also with him. At this point, we've got a minute 46 to the yellow jersey group. They're chasing the front group just to keep them within reach for the most part. You have to understand that Pogacar does not have a lot of guys on UAE that can really sit at the front and drill like Ineos, Ineos Grenadiers, that team for Carapaz. So Carapaz has more support than, the other guys. Hey, Daryl, welcome. So Carapaz has more support as far as having teammates around him, but the yellow jersey is isolated, and all he needs to do is sit in there. The first approach on Mont Ventoux is 22 kilometers long. Alaphilippe is at the front. His goal here is to get King of the Mountain points because Quintana had already been dropped. So he's the first to go. If you see the stats down there, from the head of the course, Pierre Rolland's group, but I'm mostly focusing on the peloton itself with the yellow jersey. So you can see there are 3 jerseys in group 3. They're 4 minutes, 56 seconds behind. The yellow jersey, the King of the Mountains, and the white jersey are behind this group with Alaphilippe. It's the first pass of the mountain. It's not the end. It's kind of like almost like going and having certain parts of the stage where they come into town most of the time. They'll do like a circuit. And so this time around, Mont Ventoux is not the finish. So a lot of the guys in the yellow jersey group are conserving their efforts, and you will see it pay off. So let's see here. So from this point on, Alaphilippe got all the King of the Mountain points. He got all the main points. And this guy here, who is in 10th place, David Gaudu, is struggling. It's hot, and, you know, the pace is high. And so he basically is staying within himself. But at this point, he can't really hang on to the main group. It was unfortunate to see. I mean, he didn't fall out of the top 10, but he's going to lose some time on the stage. So what I did is I grouped the final ascent. Let's see here. Let's see what question we have here. What stage should they do it? Yeah. The final ascent. So David Gaudu is dropped. And then Kelly Alessandri is with Trek Segafredo team. He attacks on the final ascent. Van Aert is behind there. And so what Van Aert does is when this guy takes off, you see Van Aert over there riding up to Alessandri's wheel. Alaphilippe, who had gone on the first pass, he got his KOM points. So he decided, you know, I'm going to temper it down. Bauke Mollema also is here with Alaphilippe. He ends up riding up to Alessandri later, but at this point, the two of them are dropped. Van Aert rides up to Alessandri, and Van Aert actually ends up passing him and going into the lead on the final ascent of Mont Ventoux. This is when it counts for the stage, and I guess that's why he kept his effort low the first time around, and this is when he gave the kick. At this point, Van Aert, who is in Group 1, has 31 seconds on Alessandri, who had launched the attack in a little bit. This is with 31 kilometers to go. The yellow jersey is 4 minutes, 32 seconds behind Van Aert. Now, remember that Van Aert is also a GC contender. So I'm sure the yellow jersey is concerned. You know, Alaphilippe is in Group 4 at 2:22. I like to put these up here so that you can kind of keep up with where everybody is on the mountain because they're all in little groups. So Alessandri is now 31 seconds behind Van Aert, who passed him. Bauke Mollema, who was right there when they took off, is a minute back from Van Aert. So Van Aert really went hard. Alaphilippe, who was with Bauke Mollema, is 2 minutes, 22 seconds behind. So when you look at it, you can see that Bauke Mollema left Alaphilippe, and he's riding up to Alessandri. He's closer to Alessandri. So Alaphilippe basically either could not continue or chose not to, but he dropped his effort. So the yellow jersey group now is 4.5 minutes back, and the grade at this point is like 12%. You can see it right there. So that's what happens on the mountain passes. People go hard early, they back off. They have different reasons why they're doing what they're doing. Right now, Ineos Grenadiers is in front. That's Geraint Thomas and Kwiatkowski. They're pulling, and the reason they're pulling is they're pulling for Carapaz. They're basically keeping the effort reasonable so that Carapaz does not lose time to other people. That's what this is about. That's why they're at the front. If the yellow jersey had a strong team, they would be at the front. But he really doesn't have a very strong team. You can see there's only one UAE rider in front of the yellow jersey at this point. This is Ben O'Connor. You guys remember Ben O'Connor won a stage and he moved up. He was like 2 minutes and 1 second behind Pogacar. But today he's struggling. It's just a different day and he's not really happy with what's going on. So you can see here as he struggles, he starts losing contact with the yellow jersey group. He's not happy about it, but what can he do? Right after the Ineos Michael Kwiatkowski pulls off because they had been riding for Carapaz. At this point, they're 23 kilometers from the finish. So that's basically the last climb before they descend to the finish line because they're not finishing at the top of Mont Ventoux on this stage. As soon as he pulls off, there's an attack that comes from Jonas Vingegaard. He attacks. And at this point, they pull away because the yellow jersey gets on his wheel. As they pull away, these two guys, that's Carapaz and Rigoberto Urán. Now, one thing about cycling or any sport is you kind of have to know at every time whether you should put the effort in or back off. These two guys realize that we don't have to go with these guys right now. 23 kilometers is 22.7. That's a long climb. And on a long climb, things can change. So these two guys are very experienced. I know Rigoberto Urán is even more experienced than Carapaz, but they stay within themselves. They watch those guys battle it. In a little bit, Jonas pulls away from Pogacar. Now, it doesn't mean that Pogacar couldn't go or whatever necessarily. I think that at this moment, he probably hit what we call a bad patch, where his body was not really able to put the effort out. But he didn't need to kill himself because 20 kilometers is a long way to go, So he backed off. Yeah, they call it, he cracks or whatever. But the key on a long climb is you stay within yourself. You cannot worry about everyone all the time. You got to think about, okay, do I have to go into the red here? He didn't have to. So he cracked. This guy continued to go, Jonas. And after that, the two guys that had conserved their energy, they ended up getting together with Pogacar on the descent into the finish. Now they've crested. When they got to the top of Mount Ventoux, Jonas had 30 seconds on the Maillot Jaune. That's not a whole lot of time. When I talked about him going when he felt good so that if you have enough time, you don't have to panic. So the three of them ended up catching, they chased Jonas down. While they were doing that, Van Aert was at the 2 kilometer mark. He knew he had it because the closest person to him was a group at a minute 25. And they communicate with these guys. They got radios and so forth. So he knew they're not going to gain a minute 25 in 2 kilometers, Basically, he's celebrating the victory early. The guy Jonas who attacked, you can see they call it group 3 on the road. He has a minute 49, but then look at the yellow jersey, 10 seconds behind. They end up catching him. That's what I was saying. The yellow jersey didn't need to go deep into the red because even though Jonas made that attack at that moment, he may not have been feeling great at that moment, but he stayed within himself. On the descent, they ended up getting him back because once Van Aert crossed the finish line, this is the Trek duo, the group with Bucky Mollema. This is Bucky Mollema and his teammate. They were second and third on the stage. But once they got through, these guys caught up to Jonas and they all rode in together. So the top 5 people did not lose any time because by the time they got there were no more time bonuses because they only gave time bonuses to the top 3 places. And those guys had already taken the bonuses. So in my opinion, Rigoberto Urán, Carapaz, and Pogacar rode very smart today. Because Mont Ventoux is a very difficult climb, let alone to do it twice. It's high altitude and it was hot. It's a tough mountain to master. Nobody ever masters it. You kind of just have to survive it. So I thought that they did a great job. There were no changes in the GC per se. Van Aert wins and Elisandi and Mollema are a minute 14 behind. That's why he was celebrating early. But overall, the first 5 guys, now Ben O'Connor went from second to first because he was struggling, but he stayed within himself. So he's at 5:58. He lost like 3 minutes. Rigoberto Urán now is in second place because if you remember, O'Connor was 2:01 away from Pogacar. So he lost a lot of time. So Pogacar is still riding well in the overall for the Tour because Vingegaard now is still 5 minutes, 32 seconds. So when you think about it, why go into the red for somebody who's 4 minutes or so behind you? Let's say 5 minutes or so behind you because he didn't gain any time today. So there was no reason for him to keep up. So I have a feeling that even though it looked like he cracked, I think he may have been told, because he's not a very mature rider. He's not as savvy, and he may be, but I thought that was the best move. The guy 5 minutes down, why are you killing yourself? He's not going to get 5 minutes out of you in 20 kilometers. So it was smart for him to not go into the red just for that acceleration. And then on the descent, it ended up catching the guy anyway. So that was just excellent strategy, in my opinion. I really enjoyed this stage. You know, it's something to see. So overall, I think the race is very exciting. I don't believe that it was a chink in Pogacar's armor necessarily. I thought that it was smart of him not to chase somebody who is so far behind you and put yourself in the red unnecessarily longer than you need to. He didn't need to dig that deep. So I think that he really rode well on this stage, you know. So that's what I wanted to cover today. I hope you all got a chance to stay active today. But this tour is not disappointing. So you all take care, be good, and stay safe when you're on the